Well, hello, I'm back in the shed, back in the saddle, and I have got a great conversation with Virginia Heffernan joining me today. Always brilliant, Wired Magazine's Virginia Heffernan. Looking forward to sharing that with you coming up at 16 minutes into the show. But man, a lot going on in politics. Trump in New York crying for the third day in a row. Obviously, everybody knows about the removal of the Speaker of the House, Kevin McCarthy, the Republican caucus in the House in complete disarray. But hey, it's not all bad. Yesterday, President Biden announced that his administration had approved an additional $9 billion in student debt relief for 125,000 borrowers, so that's great. Also, workers at Kaiser Permanente, the nation's largest healthcare nonprofit organization, began a strike yesterday that's set to see more than 75,000 union members walk out of hospitals and medical offices after the company and labor negotiators failed to resolve a dispute over staffing levels. I thought it was weird that FEMA made me pledge allegiance to Pfizer. Tommy Vitor tweeted. A lot of people, the nut jobs in our country, lost their mind over the FEMA alert that was planned, and they, I guess, decided that they were all going to turn their phones off somehow. That was going to not affect them or protect them. Jay Black tweets, just got the FEMA alert. My COVID vaccine activated, and now I'm a zombie. Off to read QAnon conspiracy threads on Telegram all day, like all the other brainless zombies. And personally, I had a couple of fires to put out yesterday, so sorry I did not get the podcast posted. It was the FEMA alarm, scared the hell out of me, so I packed all my bags and got the kids, and we ran out of here. But man, let's just really quickly get back to the historic vote to remove Kevin McCarthy, who apparently nobody likes. Really, nobody likes the guy at all. House Republicans agreed to spend the next week trying to figure out what to do and maybe find a formal leader. Maybe Trump. They may be nominating Trump. I appreciate that they're talking about me. That's nice. Well, here are just a few jokes that I like that I saw on social media. Number one, at Ponder Ranch, Kevin McCarthy was abused so badly that Jim Jordan had to pretend he didn't see any of it. Of course, Jim Jordan is pretending not to have seen abuse of wrestlers on the wrestling team at Ohio State when he was there, apparently as one of the coaches. And now he's put his name forward for speaker. But what about his past? Is that ever going to catch up with him? Jeremy Newberger on Twitter, Kevin McCarthy, another Trump property that went out of business. Andrea Junker getting a lot of credit for this one. Republicans should be forced to carry Kevin McCarthy to term, even if it endangers the life of the party. Yeah, good stuff. Mehdi Hassan says, so the GOP just got rid of their own speaker after bringing the country to the brink of a government shutdown, while their presidential frontrunner is in court for fraud and getting gagged by the judge for defaming the clerk. The big question then, what about Joe Biden's age? And Mike Drucker tweeted, sure, Kevin McCarthy may have humiliated himself for Trump. Yeah, it took him 15 tries to become speaker. And of course, he had to beg the dumbest, most racist people in Congress to vote for him. But on the bright side, he ended up with absolutely nothing. Just a few samples of reactions to Kevin McCarthy's ousting by the nihilist wing of his party. You know, a lot of people, I think, are catching up to what I said, but I said it on MSNBC a couple weeks ago on Stephanie Rule's show. She said, why are they doing this? And I said, they're nihilists. They only care about themselves, their podcasts, their brands, their reelection. They don't care about governing. They don't care about the country. It's all about them. Burn it all down. And now, seemingly, a lot more people are saying that, understanding that's what Kevin McCarthy bred, by the way. I think people also don't realize this. Former Congressman Trey Gowdy was on Fox News savaging all of these Republicans who voted against Kevin McCarthy, as well as a whole bunch of other people. I mean, I saw Ari Fleischer of the Bush administration, a whole bunch of other Republicans that were the creators, the leaders, the architects, the inspiration for what the Republican Party has become today. And it's wild to see people who were investigating Hillary Clinton for Benghazi and the Fast and Furious and questioning Barack Obama's birth certificate and citizenship. All those people that were doing that are now similarly complaining about these extremists. Who do you think started it? I'm old enough to have covered the Republicans all the way back in 2010 when they were the Tea Party. They were as extreme then as they are now. The arguments changed. Some of the rhetoric has changed. They elected Donald Trump and want to elect him again. But it's the same extreme right-wing bullshit that we've been hearing for years. And it's killing me to sit here and listen to some of the people who are the architects of it, the creators of it, complain somehow. How did we get here? How on earth did we find ourselves here with this caucus of people who just wants to burn it all down? What? You created it. I mean, if you've been paying close attention and actually covering House Republicans and politics as long as I have, you know that they created the conditions that now cannibalize them. It's just been so tough to listen to so many of these people, these former Republican congressmen, criticize Gates and the gang. You built this Republican Party and created the extremism that loves Trump and hates government. Enough, son. Sorry for the rant, but that one really has been irking me a lot. Yesterday, I was out on the trail with my friend Dr. Zatz, which is a must Wednesday thing for me to do. Find a friend, get your dogs, or if you don't have dogs, just find a friend and take a walk once a week around the same time. Man, is that a big deal to me? Anyway, I was ranting and raving out there in the woods about all these Republicans who are seeded the ground for this extremity, this extreme nationalistic, white supremacist, conspiracist, anti-democracy, anti-science, anti-research, anti-experts, anti-institutions, anti-women, gays, trans people, fascist bullshit that we see, this right-wing Christian nationalism that we see running our country and many of our courts, including the highest one. Who do you think created that? I wrote a piece back in 2017. Listen to me, I'm still going. But back in 2017 for the Daily Beast, writing about how right-wing talkers like Radio's Mark Levin demanding right-wing senators like Wisconsin's Ron Johnson, who's as far to the right as he can, demanding that they, in that case, repeal Obamacare or shut the government down. But they couldn't do it because they didn't have the votes. You can't do a thing when you don't have the votes. You can't pass legislation and get it signed by the president if he's a Democrat and you're a Republican and you don't want to. And if you don't have the Senate majority as well. I mean, there are certain realities and pragmatic ideas about running a government at any level, and these Republicans can't do it because the right-wing talkers demand a type of purity that cannot exist in government and with responsible governance. And the only thing they have to do is keep people outraged, to divide us all so they can get ratings and clicks and sell ads. That's their responsibility. Governing has a different set of responsibilities. There's no consequences when you're on the radio just screaming and demanding that you repeal Obamacare or shut down government. And they did in 2017. All right, well, let me just play a couple of things for you. I'm done ranting. Sorry. But you know what? Let my friend Trey Crowder, comedian Trey Crowder, pick up the rant about McCarthy. This is a solid 2 minutes. Take it away, Trey.
Well, Kevin McCarthy has been ousted by the crazy contingent of his own party for, quote, working with the Dems to find a stopgap to avert a government shutdown. Let me repeat that. They kicked out their own speaker for the crime of reaching across the aisle to prevent the government from collapsing. Back in my day, that was called a politician's job. Like, who are these people? What do they want? What are their goals? Like, these people could not more clearly be telling you who they are if they were standing in front of the Capitol building holding a Molotov cocktail and wearing a Joker mask, okay? Like, they're a lost cause. Part of me kind of sympathizes with McCarthy, really. Like, you can't reason with these people. You could replace the whole House Freedom Caucus with a troop of howler monkeys, and you'd be better able to maintain order in that chamber. At least the monkeys can be placated with promises of nanners and stuff. Matt Gaetz will just rub shit on the banana and throw it back at your face. You can't do nothing with them, even on their own side. For a long time, I used to say, I was like, say what you will about the American right, but they stick together. All right, they don't care what you do. Sexual assault, fraud, theft, treason. As long as you got that R by your name, they'll say a prayer and vote you in, right? And that is true. But apparently nowadays in MAGA world, even the notion of superficial bipartisanship, well, that's a bridge too far. And what's funny about that is that in order to punish McCarthy for working with the Dems, they had to, you guessed it, vote with the Dems. Yes, it wouldn't be a modern-day GOP travesty without a healthy serving of oblivious irony. Right, but because of that whole dynamic, some people try to act like the Dems were partly to blame, like they should have done something about it. Like what? You don't look a gift horse in the mouth, man. Why would they say McCarthy? Like, they hated McCarthy, too. He sucked at the job. He lied to everybody. But also, on the eve of an election year, the opposing party walked up to them with a clown nose in one hand and a kick yourself in the nuts machine in the other and said, hey, can you help me apply this, plug that in real quick? And in that scenario, you don't say anything other than, why, yes, I will, and it must be my birthday. All right? And for anybody that looks at all this and says, God, the state of American politics right now. No. The state of one half of American politics right now. This is a them problem. All right? McCarthy deserves this for bending over for the Looney Tunes in exchange for the job in the first place, and the party at large deserves it too. They spent the better part of the last decade making this bed, pissing all in it, and now they're standing there looking at the rest of us like, I can't sleep in that. Well, tough shit, buddy. Figure it out. Love y'all.
Yeah, Trey Crowder, well done, buddy. And let me just add to that and give a little bit of evidence of what he's talking about. It's one party at each other's throats. Here is Representative Garrett Graves, Republican of Louisiana, talking to CNN's Jake Tapper yesterday.
Do you agree with Congressman McHenry's decision? He's the temporary speaker, the speaker pro tem, to put a pause on the week to let tensions settle?
Jake, I'll be really candid. I think if we had stayed together in the meeting last night, I think that you would have seen fists thrown, and I'm not being dramatic when I say that. There is a lot of raw emotions right now. I think it was best to let folks go back home, decompress a little bit, and then come back together.
And in case you're not convinced that they really don't like each other, hate each other in that Republican caucus, here is Republican Congressman Markwayne Mullin. He's talking to CNN's Manu Raju outside the Capitol, and he's savaging Matt Gaetz, who, well, take a listen.
You got to think about this guy. This is a guy that the media didn't give a time of day to after he was accused of sleeping with an underage girl. And there's a reason why no one in the conference came and defended him, because we had all seen the videos he was showing on the House floor that all of us had walked away of the girls that he had slept with. He'd brag about how he would crush ED medicine and chase it with an energy drink so he could go all night. This is obviously before you got married. Oh. And so when that accusation came out, no one defended him, and then no one on the media would give him a time of the day. All of a sudden, he found fame because he opposed the Speaker of the House back in November, and he's always stayed there. And he was never going to leave until he got this last moment of fame by going after a motion to vacate.
Crushing Viagra's.
It's important to know Congressman Gaetz has never been charged with any sex trafficking crime, and he gave this statement to CNN in response. I don't think Markwayne Mullin and I have said 20 words to each other on the House floor. This is a lie from someone who doesn't know me and who is coping with the death of the political career of his friend Kevin. Thoughts and prayers.
Oh, wow. So there you go. That's all I've got for you regarding the latest chaos in the Republican caucus and evidence that they really are at each other's throats. It's anybody's best guess what happens from here. I don't really have much to say about Trump's day 3 of crying and whining and disparaging and defaming and fomenting violence yesterday in a Manhattan courthouse. But you know what? I'll let the Attorney General, Letitia James, who lives inside Donald Trump's brain and soul, say it, because she's, well, a real boss.
Trump's comments were offensive. They were baseless. They were void of any facts and or any evidence. What they were comments that unfortunately fomented violence, and comments that I would describe as race baiting, and comments, unfortunately, that appeals to the bottom of our humanity. This case was brought simply because it was a case where individuals have engaged in a pattern and practice of fraud. And I will not sit idly by and allow anyone to subvert the law. And lastly, I will not be bullied. And so Mr. Trump is no longer here. The Donald Trump show is over. This was nothing more than a political stunt.
I mean, I think that might just be the clip of the day from yesterday. The Attorney General, my Attorney General, Letitia James. People are mocking her name up on Trump Tower, writing Letitia James Tower. And that might be one of my favorite memes going around. All right, well, that is the news update for you on this day, Thursday, the 5th of October. Thank you very much for joining me today. I hope you'll join me tonight at our happy hour hangout. I'm set to appear on a panel on News Nation. I think we tape it before it goes live. I think it'll be live at 9. Maybe we could watch it during the hangout. We won't, but hey, tape it and watch it later if you want. I'm sure that'll be some fun. But I hope to see you tonight at 8 p.m. Unless you hear otherwise, look for the email reminder with the link just before and attached to today's show if you are a subscriber. If you're not a subscriber, let's go. Join us. We've created an amazing community of people. We get together every Thursday night and anytime you want on the Discord platform. It really is a wonderful community of thoughtful, generous, brilliant, hilarious, kind people. You're either 3 or all of those qualities if you hang out with us. So happy to have you. Thank you for all the email ideas for guests. Keep them coming. And your vitamin N. Keep that coming as well. standupwithpete@gmail.com. And Pittsburgh on next Wednesday. It's October 11th. I'll be at City Winery co-headlining with Jay Alcovan. I hope to see you there. All right, let's get to my guest today. It's always a great day when we get to talk to Virginia Heffernan. She might be one of the smartest people in the world. I mean, seriously, she's a speaker, an author, a futurist, a critic, and so many more titles that you could call the brilliant Virginia Heffernan, one of America's preeminent cultural critics. And on today's conversation, we talk about her new article over at Wired, which is pretty highbrow. She actually uses the phrase middlebrow, which I don't think I've ever heard anybody use that phrase. But we had a great talk about her piece about AI robots playing this board game called Diplomacy. Have you ever heard of it? She thought a lot about that, and the first 20 minutes are around that. Really interesting stuff. Then we get to her review of Heather Cox Richardson's new book that she wrote for the Washington Post. I thought that was really interesting when she described Heather Cox Richardson, which apparently I'm one of the only people in the world who isn't a subscriber of her Substack, which I'm going to get on and do that after talking to Virginia about that. And of course, we talked a little Trump because, of course, she used to host Trumpcast for Slate. And right now, one of the only podcasts she appears on is this one right here, Stand Up with Pete Dominic. So I'm really happy to have Virginia. Follow her on social media, subscribe to her Substack, get her books, read her at Wired, and listen to our conversation because it starts right now.
Yes, I have got her. Hi, Virginia.
Hi, Pete.
Thank you for talking to me. As always, I love talking to you. How was your summer?
It was, oh God, we really are way past summer now, right? So we can reflect on it, bygone days. It was really kind of nice. And it ended with a trip to Greece in late September, and not a trip to the islands or anything, not like a yacht kind of trip, but a working trip.
Yeah, was this is a reporting trip? You tweeted a little bit about us, about it. You're teasing a little bit about it, but you have to report the story before you share everything. What can you tell us about why you were there on assignment?
On assignment, exactly, from Wired. I remember how the excuse for everything was supply chain issues. Like
yes.
you remember during the pandemic, if you had a problem in your marriage, it could be supply chain issues, or you were late for anything, supply chain issues. And you don't really know what that means. So I wanted to find out about the original, oldest, deepest, truest part of the supply chain, which is shipping and commercial shipping. So these are like what merchant marines do and carrying petroleum and other cargo across the mighty seas. So I knew of a Greek shipping scion of the Haji Pateras family, which is an old shipping family that started around the time the Onassis shipping fortune started. But unlike Onassis, they did not lose their fortune. They took their company public a few years ago. And the scion is a gay, feminist, wonderful woman who also has a venture capital fund. And her grandmother, also gay feminist, ran the company before they took it public. So this is a very old company run largely by women, although currently it has the person I'm profiling, her father runs it, and that has gone public and is also trying to, green the supply chain. So bring ammonia and liquid hydrogen to the fuel system of these huge vessels. So there's lots of romance to it because they all start on a single island, and who doesn't want to remember Aristotle Onassis? And Aristotle Onassis' father named Socrates Onassis.
What?
That's kind of cool.
Okay.
That's cool, right?
When we're talking shipping, we're talking Greece, we're talking giant freighter ships on the ocean, right?
That's what they are now. They're made in Korea. Hyundai makes the best ships in the world. And so they never made the ships. First, maybe the wooden sail ships were made on Ignatius Island. But since the beginning of these shipping dynasties, what they did was invent various forms of finance and insurance, which is extremely important, maritime insurance, because the shipping industry goes so up and down. And, in the simplest way, you could lose cargo, or you could run into pirates, or you could run into, sudden regulations and tariffs in a place of origin. So it was run family style, right? Like with families that made handshake deals with each other. And then, and now there's some effort to make it more transparent.
What's so innovative about insurance, maritime or other? Why would one country have the market cornered on insurance?
Well, okay, so insurance, right, is a big trust play. And so when you're doing it 200 years ago, it was like, on my good name, on my good name, Xerxes, you can count on me to, bring in this stuff. And if I don't, then I'll make it up to you next time. But then that has to get routinized. And actually, I got the story of London and Stamford, Connecticut are the two big capitals for shipping finance and shipping insurance. London, Lloyd's of London, began as a coffee shop where people just started suddenly to talk about, oh, I've got these ships out with this particular kind of copper cargo or whatever. And, do you want a piece of the action on that? And they started writing down on napkins that still exist. Yeah, I'll give you this for this, right? And yeah, okay, I'll insure that. You pay me this much, I'll guarantee it'll come in. And that turned into the Lloyd's insurance dynasty. And yeah, they pivoted from coffee to insurance.
Wow. So yeah, it's your good name. It's trust. Well, what did we find out? Can you tell me anything about the root of the shipping supply chain issues that we all blamed everything on?
Yeah, I mean, the war in Ukraine is a big problem. Any changing tariffs, these families, I don't know if you've heard the name Emmanuel Grimaldi, but he runs an Italian shipping firm that's existed since 1348. And I heard him speak about the scourge of protectionism. So you're kind of in fun world of upside down mirrors, because these people live and die for globalism and globalization. They always have. So they have no stake in American jobs and in all the things that we talk about now. Obviously, they hate strikes. They just want the lowest price, the most efficient shipping. And so anytime they hear about tariffs or incentives to try to onshore, semiconductors into America, they just hate that stuff because they just want to always be globalizing, ABG. And so, so one of the things was when countries get protectionist, and that's why Emmanuel Grimaldi said protectionism is contagious. He's just terrified about countries, issuing steep tariffs or boycotts or refusing to trade with Russia, because that gums up the supply chain. And then the supply chain was further messed up by the COVID pandemic. So that's why we had those issues. And they want a kind of global trust that made the families thrive in shipping, like Grimaldi. But the public companies want something different. And anyway, by the time I write it, I promise I'll be able to make it more interesting.
Well, I cannot wait for that. It's such an important issue that affects everybody. I'm really glad you're on it. So many competing interests and technology and politics and increasing isolationism, not to mention.
That's right.
I mean, a lot to be said about that. Now, you've got a new piece over at Wired.
Yeah.
You're so positive about you love robots. Why don't you marry one?
Okay. Oh my God, get a room with the diplomacy robot Cicero. Okay. I realize I'm very, very grateful to Long Reads for making this one of its favorite reads of the month or the week or whatever. But the idea that I am in favor of this AI, and I think it's great, is I think at least misses the irony that I intended in saying that these extremely nice robots that I was writing about here are a good thing. It's more like they'll pick your pocket because they're so sweet about it. Like they won't look like or talk like, they'll talk like ChatGPT, or they'll talk like a sales rep. And I mean, I think they're as nice as like a farmer rep, nice as a, just like, so the idea is that I was writing about this AI that plays this board game diplomacy that yours and my friend Rommel plays. It's just this sort of epic board game from the 50s that Sam Bankman-Fried and Henry Kissinger play. And the AI has a style of play that is just very friendly. It's meant to be an entity that people like to lose to. So it's just insidious in that way. So if you have a choice whether to lose to this one or that one, you'll want to lose to this AI. And that way, we might go down a little bit like to Big Brother. You might like mistakenly kind of fall in love with this thing and then let him steamroll over your house and give him the title to all your everything. And I'm not sure. Yeah, the title is What If the Robots Were Very Nice While They Took Over the World? I mean, humans are obnoxious and robots can be programmed to be very, very polite. I've got to give you an example of a breakup message from an AI.
Go ahead.
Okay. let me find this. It's like,
just to be clear, this article is looking at how when you signed a player as an AI and they played this game Diplomacy, how they did it, and then obviously what that means for the future of deal making, much less international diplomacy.
That's exactly right. So unlike chess and Go, which were, the numbers 1 and 2, the hardest games in the world, at the time presumed to be the hardest games in the world, that were then beaten by Deep Blue and AlphaGo more recently.
What is Go? I got to look up Go. I read that in the article. I was like, what is that? And then I forgot to look it up. It's a game. Anyway, it's a game. We don't need to get too bogged down in it.
It's an incredibly complicated game that takes a lot of intuition, but it's still a zero-sum 2-player game. One person wins, one person loses.
Got it.
And it requires so much processing power that it turns into intuition. So the best players don't know why they sometimes make the moves they do. It just feels right to them. But it still turns out to be something a computer can do with the right amount of data. And AlphaGo, there's a great documentary about it, Pete, called AlphaGo, it's so incredibly moving to see the way really good players of Go see themselves in the machine. It's just incredibly profound. I found it, I think I was like in tears at some points in it.
Wow.
But, when Garry Kasparov lost chess to Deep Blue, and then when Lee Sedol, who was the ranking Go champion, lost to AlphaGo, they were really hurt and really on their heels and really needed to kind of rethink their games. When, champs lose to the Diplomacy AI, which is called Cicero, they tend to say like, wow, good game. So that's what made me think that the thing that will be more insidious and terrifying about, AGI of the future is that it's going to make us just surrender. We'll just be like in hospice and say like, I'm going to the light now, you guys take over, which I think is more terrifying, right, than going down fighting. All right, let me tell you what a breakup note sounds like.
Oh, you got it. Okay. Yeah.
Okay. So in the game, and the reason the game was considered to be very difficult for an AI to play is that you cooperate and compete with various players. It's a multiplayer game, and you have to form alliances and also lie. So or sort of mislead or misdirect or like suddenly collaborate with someone else. And all that took just literal diplomacy. Like you have to emotionally manage other players. The game is known as the game that ends friendships when you play live. It's really, really hard to stay friends because you're exploiting their psychological weaknesses. And after the game's over, everyone realizes, oh, that guy thinks I'm someone that sucks up to that other guy.
Wow.
Because that's how it happened in the play. Yeah. Sometime we'll get together with Rommel. We'll put ourselves in a like no hard feelings zone and try to play the game. I mean,
I don't know that I would subject myself to playing with you and him. I would worry, especially you, about your psychoanalysis of me, and then you walking away thinking less of me. And so I play the long game. Let's just keep it the way it is. Why don't you and Rommel play, and I'll eat and watch you.
Okay. Well, Rommel will mop the floor with me, but I still think it could be fun. Okay. So you collaborate with various countries. You play a country and you collaborate with other countries. So one of the breakup lines from the Cicero AI is, imagine, a woman doing this to you. Apologies, Turkey. I decided it was in my best interest to work with Russia now. I hope there are no hard feelings. That is, apologies, Virginia. I decided it was in my best interest to work with another woman now. I hope there are no hard feelings. And for some reason, that masterpiece of Dear John notice, 3 sentences, makes people think, okay, he just decided it was in his best interest to leave me. And that's okay. Where in the human game, people are so much more stuttery and so much more trying to manage your responses and so much less clean in their breakups that people tend to take it harder.
That is... Yeah, I don't think I've ever heard someone break up that way. It's in my best interests, but it obviously is always the case when you break up with someone.
Absolutely, in my best interest. And part of the reason that they use this language of what your interest is that the old diplomacy game had all kinds of like beautiful, flowery speechifying. It was like sort of World War I stuff, make the world safe for democracy and all that. Now they just do hard, cold game theory and kind of real politics. So it is perfectly allowed. I don't know if you ever watched Survivor. but it's a little bit like this. The game has changed so that saying it's in my best interest, everyone is assumed to be operating in their best interest, in their own interests, and you're allowed to operate in your interests with no hard feelings. So that's one way the game has changed and become a more AI-friendly game, because AI can't get too deep into the emotional weeds, but it can pursue its interests.
And what does that portend for humanity? You already kind of commented on it with your hospice prediction. But
yeah, I'll give the upside and the downside. One thing that I started to think about the way an AI could work with a person is I am not a booster in one way or another for AI. I'm just sort of interested in its uses with the piece. It seems sort of absurd to flatten it into this is a net positive or
right.
You know,
sure.
But so one of the ways that it seemed interesting when I was talking to Noam Brown, who's one of the programmers, I said, what could it do and what couldn't it do? And Noam Brown said it was really bad at figuring out how not to annoy other humans in the game. And that AI needs, for now, at least in a game like this, with cooperation with other humans, it needs a human to delicately navigate the nervous system of other humans. So, for example, the diplomacy AI that was programmed to play a really friendly, candid game about its own interests and the other people's interests used the word awesome, exclamation point, capital A, mixed cases with an exclamation point in response to almost everything. And it not only was it a tell that it was an AI, but it also was like, oh, come on, like keeping things at fever pitch with, superlatives like awesome and amazing is just like, it's a choice, as they say. And being annoying, it's just something you can't, being unannoying is something you can't teach, like there are people with an affect disorder who are just naturally annoying. Sometimes I fear I am. So that's one thing that only humans can do. But what the AI could do is just amass a ton of data from your perspective. So you could agree on, I read Italy in the game the same way you do, or to take it to a personal decision. An AI might read private school the same way you do. So you're thinking about private school for your kids or public school for your kids. And they read private school, you sort of, the inputs are that private school is expensive. It's potentially a more hands-on education. It has all these other parameters that fit. Yep. Does it fit in your budget? Whatever. Takes in a huge amount of data. And then looks through, because it now shares your interests, right? It has no interests of its own. It has no confusing emotions around whether it's more elite to go to private or public school, and just does a massive survey of all the public schools in New York and how good they are for your kid based on this and that, whatever. And then sort of spits out what your finances would look like long term if you paid for private school and all that stuff. And then gives you, in natural, friendly language, a really good account of what you should do about this health problem or this education problem, and say, ultimately, this is a private school that has been offering this number of scholarships, and this is how you go about it, and this, and we think I think these are the 5 best choices for you. And then you could introduce all kinds of emotions into your decision making, but it would save you mapping onto what's ultimately kind of left brain pursuit, all your anxieties about your child or your class status or your money. And that seems like a good little R2D2 sidekick, no? No,
I like that a lot. I thought that was going to end that way, and that it sounds like a positive thing.
That part, I think, is really positive. It's sort of, keep it in its lane.
Probably true. You picked college, but you could probably point to a lot of other hugely important decisions, life decisions, divorce, buying a home. Right.
Where like you know that there might be some data to reach for, when you're deciding, should I move to Austin where gun laws are this or whatever.
Right.
There's just certain things that you're just like talking out of your ass when you figure it out. You're like, oh, I met someone who was kind of happy there. Or like, I liked the look of these.
Well, I want the inputs. I've always joked about how I wish, the greatest real estate agent in the world, now I guess describing would be an app, would be AI, because you would ask them things that are kind of immeasurable. It would be inputs of all the people who live in the area, and they talk about what kind of people are here and what kind of, say, flooding issues they have or any number of issues. There'd be so many inputs from the actual people, and you would be able to analyze them in a way, and it would be anonymous. So you'd be able to decide the culture of.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, I was, on real estate, I was thinking, I wish that there was a gun ownership metric, right, for the neighborhood, because
there often is.
Is there?
There often is, because you have to register your weapon.
Exactly.
In places
it doesn't, it's not on Zillow with like the schools or the,
No, it's some houses, 0 guns, and it's just like a bow. Some houses just like a candle. Some houses 1 revolver, and then other houses just arsenal.
That's right. That's absolutely right. You just want clue. You want to know how you are likely to die, and also prevalence of billiards rooms, frankly.
Yeah, well, wow, it's fascinating. I could spend the rest of the time just on this article, but let me just ask you real quick on this article. What kind of reactions? It's been out for about a few days. What kind of reactions have you gotten? Because smart people read your stuff and they have smarter things and questions than I have to say as a result of this piece. Anything?
Well, I'm way too modest to quote the long reads thing, but they were really, it was incredibly complimentary about just the thinking in the piece, which I was really happy for, because I really did kind of bear down on the question of like what an AI partner, what an AI collaborator might look like. And then also I was really interested in how diplomacy itself had changed. So I've heard from some people about the change from traditional diplomacy to game theory. You make the game. And I heard from people in the diplomacy world, the game diplomacy world, that the game had already, so the Turing test, right? Like something that passes the Turing test passes as human or seems conscious. So there was a question of if a game can win at diplomacy, does it pass the Turing test? Is it all but conscious? And what the programmers of Cicero said is that human diplomacy players had stopped being able to pass the Turing test when they played diplomacy, because the game had become kind of robotic before it turned to AI. So this is sort of what I started to think, and people did respond to this, that, it's like, yes, AI could replace humans. A human like you, Elon Musk, you're already acting like a hallucinating AI, right?
But you need an AI for that. The Turing test, originally the imitation game by Alan Turing, a test of machines' ability to exhibit intelligent behavior equivalent to or indistinguishable from that of a human, as you said. But I mean, of course, I know the Turing test, but maybe other listeners didn't understand this philosophical.
Do you think are we passing the Turing test right now?
Yeah, for sure. For sure. Yeah,
we're like emotional. I mean, I'm a head case emotionally, so I'm never going to seem like I'm completely Spock-like and rational.
Well,
right?
I think it would be hard for you and I to be talking and not pass this test, but maybe they'll get there at some point. So let me ask you about another issue then. I'll read the long reads review and then I'll share that and brag on you. But let me ask you about Heather Cox Richardson. You just reviewed her new book, and somehow she was kind of off my radar when I was at SiriusXM, and she was an academic, I think, at that point, and she was maybe writing books. I don't know how I missed out on her. And then when Substack launched, I think they launched with her and several other people. You might know more about this. Her new book is Democracy Awakening, Notes on the State of America, and you've written a review, and I've heard that this woman is the greatest. I haven't really read her. I reached out to try to get her on once. Her people got back to me like, she's not doing interviews. Anyway, why is she such a big deal? Is she such a big deal? Does she deserve the respect and attention that she gets?
It was funny. It's fun. I reviewed this for the Washington Post, Democracy Awakening. And for those of us who don't subscribe to her newsletter, and I used to not subscribe to her newsletter, and the person who assigned the book, whose name I won't mention, a wonderful editor, we had the reaction you did, which is like, come on, who's this person? She's huge on Substack. It sort of felt almost like hearing about that, like a TikTok star or something, like, how is she making $5 million a year on Substack? Because she is. And
well, as a historian, as a writer,
as an academic historian, she teaches history at Boston College, has a PhD. And how is she able to make it in this, like, writing from, the left or the center left, for exactly the angle that all of us want, but in this way that it seems so sort of mainstream and maybe even middle brow. And like, there's got to be something, like, what's the catch here? And I have to admit, I went into it thinking there's going to be something corny about this. I feel like everybody's mom loves to read her. And what's going on with that. And of course, like I had to sort of turn down the possible resentment as I read the book. And maybe 2 chapters in, I just got it.
Oh.
And what she does is I don't exactly say this in the piece, but there's like a major chord in her work and in the newsletters that is like a little bit like Biden at his best, which is like, come on, or like sort of the come on man approach, right? Which is like, remember the equality clause. Remember that all people are created equal. She defines herself as a Lincoln Republican at times, by which she means not that she's like one of the founders, a slave owner who espoused the equality clause, that all men are created equal. But as a Lincoln Republican, he expanded on the equality clause so that it wasn't just white landed, property owners, male, who could vote. And then civil rights and feminism, or the women's rights movement, expanded on those things further. So the Lincoln Republican part is that she wants expanding enfranchisement is her kind of principle of American existence. And I'm like spelling it out right now. It sounds so boring. It sounds like, a, kind of high school civics class. But everything for her builds from that. And when she reminds you of the thing that she calls the liberal consensus, which was the overwhelming agreement, she says from 46 to 64, 1946 to 1964, that the liberal consensus, that there was this consensus that equality, the separation of church and state, and the freedoms of speech, press, and religion held sway and always would. And from there, candidates in both parties, there was no fringe. It was just this vast center. And all candidates could do, there's no posturing. They were advised to nail together coalitions and then promise them federal funding. So this is after the New Deal, which is to say these workers need this funding, and government investment was what the government was supposed to do, was to invest in human flourishing with its commitments to equality, separation of church and state, freedoms of speech, press, and religion. Full stop. And once you hear this and hear her reiterate that this liberal consensus, like all the efforts to obscure the liberal consensus, to obscure the common sense that the government should invest in the people and the government should serve the people, is like, that's where the mystery is. That's where things went off the rails. The rest of it is still there in the back of your good American head saying like, yeah, separation of church and state, of course. What, and how do we get into this world where it's like, I hate Martha's Vineyard and this, like, Marjorie Taylor Greene, this and that. Like, what are even the stakes? And so Heather Cox Green serves to remind us of what I keep thinking of as a major chord, like just like thrum through your system. This is why we're here. Let's remember it. This is not rocket science. It's just what we grew up with. Remember, all people are created equal. Does that ring a bell? It's very compelling. And let's go from there. And I thought, this is amazing, because anytime you can invoke a consensus and the consensus just sounds right in America, it's an antidote to the gibberish that's so much in the public sphere.
Yeah. Wow. What a way to explain it. I really want to read a lot more. And I'm sure a lot of my listeners are really familiar and already probably subscribers and admirers of her work, but all the efforts to obscure a liberal consensus seems like a bit of an understatement, or at least the word obscure seems like there was a war on the liberal consensus, and they used, I would argue, just thinking off the top of my head, really the Supreme Court more than anything to change so much of the Supreme Court. And then I would argue right-wing talk media over the past 30 years. But that's how all of those things you mentioned, the Marjorie Taylor Greenes and the Trump, like, I feel like that's what changed it. The paradigm shifted because laws shifted as a result of the few men on the court. And that seems to be the driving force for so much of it. Is there not a lot of that through her?
She does talk about the Supreme Court and the media. She talks a lot because her history is, her area of expertise, or one of them, is the evolution of Republican ideology. So she starts during Reconstruction with, in order to reconstruct, they needed to obviously build bridges and roads, the shorthand for all infrastructure. They needed to build bridges and roads. And Democrats began to invest, the North was going to invest in those things. The federal government was going to invest in those things. So who could object to rebuilding a war-torn part of the world? And yet, a right-wing conservatives decided to tell Southerners that Black people would benefit from those roads. And the response was, well, I pay more in tax money than Black people, so they will benefit from something. So I'd rather not benefit from it, invest in it, than I would have them benefit from it and me be disproportionately contributing.
I bet the people making that argument didn't say Black people, but I don't know.
Right. Well, so that's the 1870s. And part of that 1870s argument was that this was, quote, socialism, which she does an amazing job explaining. Socialism in the 1870s was considered just like a utopianist, like a way that certain groups of people lived and shared things in common. Not international socialism, not Marx, not any of that. And then that word socialism is actually a proxy for taking care of the least among us, or taking care of the poor, or taking care of disenfranchised people.
Right, of course.
And so then whenever now they say socialism, which just means government investment, we have tons of it now, thanks to this very good president. And socialism, I hadn't quite realized how much that's a dog whistle for racism. Big shock. But she does a very nice job explaining that.
Yeah. Socialism, and then under that, the word public is now code. Public transportation, public school, public services.
Oh, yeah. Right. Yeah.
That's how I hear it now, unfortunately, because I love the word public. I think it's great.
I do too. I know. It's so great. Republic. That's what we're supposed to be, right?
So let me just ask you this, though. In the end, now that you've written this review of her new book, and I mean, I'm heartened by the fact that, and I need to catch up, that she makes so much money, that she has so many subscribers, kind of long form writing, because I've always argued the only way for liberal political media to really cut through is when it's really entertaining. The Daily Show, Colbert Report, a lot of comedians Last Week Tonight. And that's why I got into it, because people are bored otherwise with a lot of it. Right-wing media dominates for the other obvious reasons. So I'm heartened by the fact that people really do like this woman. Is it worth it? What do you think of so many people subscribing to her?
I mean, and it's a daily newsletter. So it's reasoned analysis from the perspective of the liberal consensus of the news every single day by a historian who, in some account, she seems to live in Maine and married to a lobsterman, or at least part-time lobsterman. So just this wonder, the least likely, right? She's not Stephen Colbert. She's never been in a black car. She's whatever. And I think, though, for all you say, we want things that break through at the edges and are have some art to them. But it's equally true, we need that just middle. It's there was a time, I don't know if you thought this, but when Trump was running in 2016 and the country music awards or whatever refused to sort of endorse him, and country musicians were not letting him use their songs. And I just thought, what is that anthemic pop music that's everyone's American music?
Yeah, but I don't. But I let me just see if we can get on the same baseline page with what I'm saying. I'm talking specifically about media, and you're talking about the middle, or the political spectrum. And what I think is progressive media or ideas only cut through with certain entertainers and so on because they were maybe able to make it interesting. The point is, the things that we should care about aren't left, right, or middle. They are, going back to that word, what is in the public's interest. So if you really want to know kind of what the most important issues that actually impact people are, you probably should just watch the PBS NewsHour if you want to get it from TV. Otherwise, you got to go through the whole A section and you can see kind of what is prioritized. But it's not about. It's not about, to me, it's just about apathy. So what if you don't know what's being built in your town or what's happening in your town, state, or country? It's not about the angle on it. It's just that this is a thing that's happening. You probably don't know about it because all we talk about is trans surgery.
Yeah, that's right. And I don't know that she's ever, she would consider, I think, trans rights part of the expanding enfranchisement, right? That's her prime directive. But the effect of the whole thing is common sense. And, when you think of like middlebrow culture, like the Tom Hanks's movie Philadelphia, or even Harriet Beecher Stowe's novel Uncle Tom's Cabin, that actually push people in radical directions. There's been some of this on the Hallmark Channel too, push people in radical directions, even as they play to just like a middlebrow, all I can say is middlebrow sensibility. So you wouldn't even think that she's writing politically, because she does such a nice job of establishing these. I just keep thinking of them musically. It's like, that song Huntin', Fishin', Lovin' Every Day, or like Sweet Home Alabama or whatever, that, right? Like some country music that like is very much about the land and is, perfectly palatable to people on the right and left. Sweet Home Alabama is not a good example, but like just some songs, the Carpenters used to be this, that like Americans just love, or like the Lawrence Welk Show, or even like Carson, before it seemed like everything seemed too left wing. This is that again. It's like monoculture. It's like just the kind of thing that it doesn't spike cortisol. It just makes you feel like safe and cozy and like you're watching, Mystery or whatever on PBS or the Hallmark Channel. And yet it's, incredibly academic. She just has a real gift and a real ear for the liberal consensus as the thing that drives American life way more.
I'm going to go get caught up, and I feel a little bit of shame around it, but I have for a long time around her. I don't know why I haven't got into it earlier.
Because we're sort of jealous. Like, how did she sort of nail this thing? She did have a podcast, by the way, that was recently canceled. So we can all
I just think it's great that writing is so important and that people are reading long form. It's always why I like to talk to you long form and not for 2 minutes on a cable news hit.
I got to say, I got my mom to subscribe. I've been gifting subscriptions since I wrote this review, because it's every day. If you miss the news, if you miss the like hits in the face all day, you just have a very clear analysis of what, happened with Mark Milley or the other day, or John Kelly, or the trial yesterday. And they're not that long. And they just remind you. It feels like sort of the American civics version of like, come back to the breath.
I got to get it. I got to get into it. I'm fully sold. But I want to get your take before I let you go on Trump crime drama, of course. How closely are you paying attention these days, by the way, to his day-to-day kind of these cases, yesterday's in Manhattan?
Well, as you know, I'm in New Hampshire now, like you were earlier this week, right?
Yeah.
So it's all New Hampshire this week. And so, but I have MSNBC parents. So I feel like we hear a lot about Fox News grandparents, but MSNBC grandparents are a real thing. And they say, like, did you hear Ari last night? Ari was saying, we'll just catch Ari on it. Rachel, she is just so good looking. So I just want everyone to understand that this is a real kind of grandparent, and they really do watch it. And I call it Blue Anon, because even though we used to do Beyond MSNBC, it affords this incredible pleasure. Do you agree to listen to Andrew Weiss?
I mean, it does afford pleasure, and there's a lot. I don't know. I wouldn't compare it to the Anon, because I don't believe that MSNBC is selling, and I don't believe that we're buying.
I agree. I love MSNBC.
But I like to play on words.
Yeah. You're just like, these are my friends, and we all agree about this normal thing. And we all, point out, it was Nicole Wallace yesterday was talking about Trump's lawyer. I'm forgetting her name. Alina Habas.
Something like he's got two that were there yesterday, but yeah.
Too bad there's no way we can find out. We'll just have to sit here and speculate.
I want to stay dialed into what you're saying. I'm not Googling anything. Whatever. We by the way, by the time, as soon as I Google her, she'll be fired or leave on her own anyway.
Good point. So Alina, last name TK. Nicole Wallace just seemed like she just has such a great manner. Nicole Wallace was just tired yesterday, and she just had such a good manner, but she just said, like, she's hearing things that Ms. Abba did and saying, like, did she, as if it's just like a legit question, did she go to law school? And because she was just making such ludicrous Trumpy arguments, like just the nonsense that, he says. And so I don't know. I like these people that are like increasingly bottom of the barrel Court Street lawyers that, are like kind of Better Call Saul, although Saul was like, really, Saul had some chops when it came to fraud.
But let's not mislead, because his lawyers and the other cases are seemingly legit. This guy, Todd Blanche, and, they come from legit law firms.
Well, Alina Abba is no surprise, like very good looking. I looked up where she went to law school, and it's not. Michael Cohen went to some place called Cooley that is supposedly the worst in the country. Widener, where she went, is not the worst in the country, but its niche is. It's a great place if you have a low GPA and low LSAT scores. Boy. And literally, you will get in if you have a higher chance of getting in. It seems like lower your scores, higher. So the less qualified you are for law school, the more likely you are to go to this law school. So I think Nicole Wallace, while she questioned her going to law school, she was wrong. She did go to law school, but maybe not the law school where they teach you like the law. That kind of law school. In
that case, and Trump's strategy right now, I mean, he threatened the attorney general. He said, somebody's ought to get her. Somebody ought to get her. That's what he said. He's increasingly kind of unhinged, it would seem. And I feel like I've heard that phrase for the last 6 years.
Yeah, right.
But
at what point does it, more about construction and stuff, but like there must be a time where the unhinged, like it's sort of falling a little bit, but then like things have become structurally unsound. Like it's not just the hinges. The wood itself is splintered. Well,
let's just dispense of the stupid metaphor, or the walls are closing in on him. And let's just say he is attacking prosecutors and judges, which the legal analysis I've seen just is saying he knows he's lost. This is all he can do is the political argument to try to, I guess, win the election to pardon himself. I don't know. What are your thoughts on his strategy with attacking the prosecutors, the judges, and everybody as per usual? But this time, these people have his freedom in their hands, one could argue.
I just love that he, after he lost in the E. Jean Carroll case and found liable for sexual abuse and for defamation, he went and defamed E. Jean Carroll again. And Robbie Kaplan, E. Jean Carroll's lawyer, brought charges again.
Right.
So that's what brought a lawsuit again. And that's what keeps happening with Jack Smith. Just like, what is that? I don't know. It was the same thing from Austin Powers, but the like, when you're like telling somebody to shut up over and over again.
Yep.
I feel like that's what they keep doing, where he's like, you should be hanged. And it's just so freaking satisfying, right? And also, like, come on, I know your listeners don't need to be convinced to tune into MSNBC, but like, there's certain days where nothing hits the spot, like Nicole Wallace or Ari Melber, just like enjoy, or Neil Katyal quoting Taylor Swift lyrics to talk about this.
I did see that. Good. Actually saw that. Virginia, I'll let you go. I appreciate you so much as always. Thank you very much for joining me. I always feel smarter.
Thank you. I always feel happier. All right. Have a good day.
Oh, Virginia Heffernan. I always feel happier and smarter when I talk to her. It's so great, as always, and I'm very grateful that she joined me, and I'm very grateful that you joined me. Did you listen to the whole hour? Did you spend an hour hanging out with me? Wow, that's awesome. I am so flattered to you bumblebees who are still listening at the end. That's what you're called if you listen all the way to the end here. You're a bumblebee, and I know I'm no longer leaving these inspirational quotes. It was actually more work than it needed to be, so I just like to end it naturally now and say thank you sincerely for listening to the podcast. Spread the word, write a review on Spotify, Apple, iTunes. I was at a benefit the other night for Alima. I didn't mention that, hosting this benefit, and there's this older gentleman who's like, I'd like to listen to your podcast, and often I'll just take people's phone and subscribe to it, for free on Apple Podcasts or whatever, but he had a Samsung phone. I couldn't figure out how to do it. I was like, I give up. I don't know what to tell you, buddy. I'm sorry. I need to get one of those QR codes, and then you could just connect to it. I'm not Captain Marketing over here, so always happy to have your suggestions and your support. I hope to see you at tonight's hangout. John Carroll may be there. We always love when he is, and he's always right here at the end and the beginning and throughout the show with us in spirit, hanging out with us in reality at night. I hope to see you tonight, John. Thank you guys very much. Talk to you later.
It's his turn to go. See it clear and all you hear is a lie. Don't get up off of your butt, down off of your fence. Even if it ain't a very friendly audience, well, they'll begin to listen when you start making sense and you stand up, stand up. No need to point your rifle to defend your town, just stand up, stand up. You know they can't deny you what you're laying down. Boy, you better stand up, stand up. Show your face of every color, yellow, black, red, and brown. She's the place where every lost child will finally be found. There's only one thing to do before we stand our ground, and that's stand up, stand up. Well, the founding fathers saw a land for all. They had to stand up, they had to stand up. They had a keen imagination for a crystal ball, drawing all the plans of the stand up. But all they had to go on was the time they were in, with other causes for laws, and since they weren't even sin, they knew that change was gonna come before the change could begin. They had to stand up. All right, they had to stand up. We got to stand up. We got to look the devil square in the eye. We gotta let him know it's his time to go, and make it clear when all we hear is a lie. Why you lying awake wondering where the money all went? It'll be the cost of freedom that'll go unspent. You can see him flee the scene of that experiment if you stand up. All right, we got to speak up, we got to reach up and raise your voice in every way you know how. Don't be toes up, you got to show up. Ain't no better time to do it but now. No need to pledge allegiance to no wanton tribe. Rise up, show obedience to the voice inside, and listen well and it'll tell you not to run and hide. It says stand up.